Hi, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still get terrible stage fright. It always takes me like 10 minutes to warm up. Boy, Adam's talk really struck a note for me because I used to play Scrabble with my wife once a year on her birthday. And then one year she played Qigong, Qigong, and I refused to play with her after that. And so, you know, it was actually a strain on our marriage, and maybe Adam will. Anyway, so, all right, so here's the problem we're trying to solve. You're programming along in Perl for some reason, and you have constructed some object from some horrible class that you got off of the CPAN, and then you're like, well, you don't want to consult the manual because nobody does that, right? You want to call a method on it, and you're, oh yeah, I think this thing has a previous sibling method, and you call the previous sibling method, and then your program crashes and says, can't locate object method prev sibling, blah, 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 blah. And, oh, well, okay, so it doesn't have that method, and now how are you possibly going to figure out what method you meant to call? At this point, you might actually have to look in the manual, and then all the like cool kids are going to laugh at you. So somebody asked me, well, why doesn't it do what Tickle does and say, give you a list of the methods that you could have called? So the purpose of this talk is we're going to describe a module called help. And if you say use help and then the name of some class, it will adjust the objects in that class so that bad method calls then emit a report about what methods would have worked and which ones are defined directly, like this one, and which ones are inherited via some base class. And this is a pretty horrible looking report, but you know, the formatting isn't really the issue here, and I'm sure everybody could figure out ways that they could format this better. So the important part is the internals, and that's what the talk is about. So method dispatch in Perl is done depth first. If you've got some horrible class and inherits from classes B1, B2, B3, and then B1 inherits from C1 and C2, Perl will search depth first up the inheritance tree looking for methods. You call a method here, it'll look here, and then it'll look here and here, and then it'll look in B2, and then it'll look in B3, and then in D. And the way that's set up in Perl is there's this variable called isa, which says that a horrible thing is a B1, and is a B2, and is a B3. And then in B1, there's an isa variable. It says a B1 is a C1 and a C2. And people used to laugh when I was teaching Perl classes, and I say, oh, it's isa, and what does isa stand for? And I'm like, well, it's is-a, but anyway. And then so variables in Perl, you can spell out the full name, which has the class name, and then a double colon, and then the variable name. So the full name of the horrible things is a variable. Here is horrible colon colon thing colon colon is a. Okay, so moving along here. Let's see. Uh-oh. So when you say in Perl, use help horrible thing, this use does two things. First, it locates help, and it loads in and compiles the code for help. And then it calls a compile time hook called import. That's actually a class method in the help package. So it calls help import, and it passes this guy here as an argument. And what does our import do? Normally, import is set up so that you use some module and it makes its functions available in your namespace. And that's why it's called import, even though what it does is actually export, which is Perl for you. But here we're going to do something a little bit weird. We use the import hook, we get control, and then this is the name of help. That's the class we're calling it on. And here's the list of arguments we got, which in this case is just horrible thing. And then we're going to loop over them. We're going to construct the name of the isa variable for each of those classes. This is horrible colon colon thing colon colon isa. And then into the array with that name, we'll push the name of our class. And so we've taken the horrible thing is a tree that was set up in the normal way, and then when we said use help horrible thing, we kind of inserted ourselves in here at the end. So now horrible thing is going to inherit from help also. Everybody happy? All right. So now we call some horrible object, we call footus, right? And it's going to go searching up, and it's going to search here and here and here, and presumably there is no actual footus method, right? I mean, if there is, it'll find it and it'll run it normally, which is just what we want. But if it isn't there, then as a last resort, it's going to end up looking in help. And then the lookup of help of footus in help is going to fail also, because we don't have help footus, right? There was a time when this image was like the #1 Google hit if you search for footus. And I was so proud because I manufactured this one. I thought it was the perfect one, but it's fallen off the, I'm sorry, I'm wasting my 10 minutes here. So it doesn't find it there either. Perl does something a little weird because, it's Perl, it has to do everything a little weird. After it doesn't find fugs footus, it does the same thing over again, but it looks for a method called Autoload, all capitals. And then if any of these guys has an autoload's kind of the method of last resort. It's supposed to handle failed method calls. If one of these guys has an autoload, then it gets called as normal, as if we hadn't used help. But if none of them does, then we end up in help, and then we end up in help autoload. And there is a help autoload, and now we're going to see it. And let's see. So here's help autoload. It gets called with the name of the class or the object. What's going on here? Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. This autoload variable here is set to the name of the method that Perl was trying to find in the first place that wasn't found. And we do a pattern match on it, and we get the name of the class that we were trying to find it in, and then the name of the method. So here, in this case, it's set to horrible class fugs footus, and this guy gets horrible, this guy gets horrible class, and this guy gets fugs footus. And then it's going to populate this hash of known methods by, groveling over the symbol table to give away a little bit. And then it's going to generate a report. So let's see. So here's the part where it's going to populate the hash. It does a depth first search over the inheritance tree, just like Perl would do if it was searching for this method. We initialize our stack here for the depth first search with the base class. Oh, sorry, actually it's the bottom class, but it's not the base class. It's actually the derived class. Anyway, the bottommost class in that tree, the root of the tree. And then we run over the stack. We pop an item off the stack. This is a little bit of code that says, oh, and if you actually are looking at help itself, skip over it. Because you don't want to look at that, because we're playing a trick here, pretending we're not really there. This underscore package is a compile time constant for the package that we're actually in right now. And then, let's see, we put together the name of the is a variable, and then we take all the classes that the current class is inheriting from and push them onto the stack, so we'll search them later. And then, this variable here is the name of a hash. That's a dictionary for you Pythonistas. It's a mapping that is the symbol table for this particular class, and the keys are the names of variables and functions in there, and the values are these things you absolutely don't want to know about called globs. Fortunately, we only need the names here, and then we're going to loop over the names, and then we'll put together the name of, hopefully, a function, class, colon, colon, and then the name of the function. And then this is Perlese for checking to see if there is actually a function with that name, or if maybe it's the name of a scalar variable or something else. But this will return true if it's the name of a function. You don't want to know about the ampersand either, trust me. We skip it if it's not the name of a function, but if it is, then we insert it into this known method hash that we're building up. So we're building up this hash where the keys are the function names, and the values are the classes where we found the function. So that's moving along, let's see. And then I think we're almost done, and then we're done, because all we have to do now is we've got this hash that has a list of all the names in it, and we just have to produce a report. So we issue a warning message, unknown method blah, maybe try, and then we loop over the function, the method names that we found, and issue a warning with each one, and we mention, if it's in the base class, we don't say anything extra, but if it's in some class from which this bottom class is inheriting, we mention it, and then we finally issue a fatal error. That's croak. Isn't it funny? Haha, croak. All right. An alternative, of course, we don't have to print out a report. You could do fuzzy matching, right? And use a fuzzy matching module and say, oh, well, you instead of printing out this huge list, you probably meant previous sibling. And oh, yeah, okay. Or we could do something even cooler. Once we do the fuzzy match, if it's good, we could just, call that method and just pretend that you never made a mistake at all, because that's not crazy at all, is it? No. And let's see, so there's the summary. We've got these is-a variables that do inheritance. Import is a compile time hook for modules. Autoload is the method of last resort, gets control if something doesn't work. Package is a compile time constant for the current namespace. Hash variable that ends in a double colon is a symbol table in Perl, and you can look at it just like any other hash. And then we can, if this is the name of a variable, we can ask about the function with that name or the array with that name dynamically, which is really a useful thing to be able to do. And I've got 30 seconds left, so here's something else you can do. There's a universal class in Perl, which is considered to be a base class of absolutely everything. It's not used for much. It implements can and it is a method that tells if one object is inheriting from another. And you could say use help in universal to make help an universal inherit from help. And so now this does this, and yeah, I don't know. It's, I tried it. It seems to work okay, but it's just like, yeah, let's move on. All right. And so we're done, and thank you very much. The slides are online.